And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Scott Tanfield from Friends of Fulham and Emilio Nello. This is our show about the ticket pricing increase for season ticket holders. And we're going to talk about this as long as we need to, guys. We have a lot to talk about in regards to what Fulham have done the other day. And I'm being curious views of both of you. And if you're watching live, please feel free to share your thoughts on this. If you're a season ticket holder, are you going to renew your season tickets? That's the question I'm asking to anyone watching live. Are you going to renew your season tickets? I'm curious your thoughts on it. Okay, guys, let's get going. First of all, I want to welcome both my co-hosts to the show. Mr. Tanfield, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's good to be back, Russ. It's been a while. I think other things in life have got in the way of obviously Fulham of late. I was having a message from the other day at Pop On. I thought I'd come on and have a chat about obviously this issue with the season tickets.
Okay, excellent. Emilio, thank you for coming back on, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, but thank you for doing the show with me tonight.
No, thank you for asking me to come on. I'm good to be back on, Scott. It's been a long time since we were last on the show. I was actually banging my head when was the last time we did. I think we did it with probably Rob and Gordon, I think, Scott. Was that the last time you were on the show? That's a while back. That was last season, I think it was. So, yeah, good to be back on the show to talk about a subject that's obviously quite controversial and quite upsetting a lot of people, shall we say. So, yeah, it'd be good to get our thoughts and everyone else watching tonight, see what they think. But it's a sensitive subject, especially in the current position we're in globally with the cost of living, etc. Everyone's feeling the pinch. So I think it's more prominent because of that as well.
Okay, excellent. All right. Before we get going, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. And guys, let's get to it. And like I said, I'm going to be looking at the questions. If we have any questions, I'm be sharing some questions with you as we do this show. But Scott, I'll go to you first. I just want to get your gut reaction when you heard the news about the price increase, not only the Riverside stand, we could talk about the Riverside stand, but also for all the stands. If I'm being accurate here, roughly about an 18% increase for existing season ticket holders, which in my opinion is pretty steep. It's a good amount. So I'm thinking, why have they done that? But I just want to get your opening thoughts when you heard the news.
Yeah, I think like most people, I mean, sort of shocked when the prices come out. I mean, I know prices of everything's going up lately. I mean, you look at your average shopping bill, utility bills, everything else is going up, around the country. Football, I think, is slightly different because obviously it's a pastime for people to go to games, obviously in spare time and, to socialise with people. So it obviously hits the pocket of people. I mean, especially if they're bringing kids and everything else. Time you go out for the day, the game, you buy something to drink and eat. It's always an expensive day out. So for the general person that's kind of suffering at the moment, it's become more expensive. So I was quite surprised to see such a hike. I mean, I think we'll get onto it, a bit deeper as the show goes on. But then obviously we've seen the prices of the Riverside come out as well, and I think a lot of people shocked for the kind of state that's in at the moment by not being completed, and the money they want for certain sectors around that stadium or that stand. Sorry, and I just think it's caused quite a buzz, isn't it? I mean, some people are sort of saying not going to renew, some are. So it's caused quite a topic, isn't it? So look, I'm looking forward to this evening. I think obviously all three of us have probably got some questions and some good conversations to have about this,
Absolutely. And Emilio, I'm going to go to you. I actually shared the pricing now on my screen. If you're watching live, you can see some of the pricing, and it's pretty, like I said, 18% for me is a lot, my friend. What are your thoughts? What's your opening thoughts on the pricing?
I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. I'm not surprised it's that level of increase. I think they've done it similarly in previous seasons when we got promoted. Remember when we were in the Championship under Jokanovic, that there was a steep jump from that season into the Premier Leagues. And they're notorious for doing this. I think, to be honest with you, I predicted about 15% rise. So it's actually not that far behind. So the fact that I'm surprised, it's disappointing to be. I think this what things coming out of all this is just the lack of engagement between the club and the fans. I think this is something that there's two sides of the coins. There's the cons that have spent a lot of money on transfers. They've pumped a lot of money into the stand. They've obviously trying to do the best for the football club. By that I mean the club in terms of its performance on the pitch, not necessarily in terms of the fans. But their lack of engagement with the fans is an issue, to be honest. And this is going to literally take precedence now. With a lot of people are not going to be able to afford that. Junior tickets have gone over the roof. The fact that, mine's gone up 100, I think it's about 130 quid year on year. We'll talk about whether I'll renew in a moment, but I'm not surprised by that. We've seen them doing this, but we must also consider, I'm not saying it's right, but a year ago when we got promoted, the increase from the Championship to the Premier League, the rise was quite low in comparison to what I would have expected. I expected last year to be higher than it was. So I'm not saying it makes it right, but I'm just saying, look, looking from a business perspective, last year they enticed us to secure the seats, experience Premier League football. There's probably a bit of hedging their bets there as part of that last year's lowish prices because they weren't knowing whether the club was going to be successful and stay in the Premier League. Now that we're pretty much guaranteed survival, even though there are a few people looking over their shoulders, it doesn't justify a 15 to 20%. It is a bit ridiculous. And where I'm getting frustrated is their lack of interaction, listening to the people that count. The fans who, like myself, Scott, and older people, Val Galassi, who's been supporting his club for 60 odd years, sits next to me at the ground. Where's the loyalty there? There is no loyalty. And that's the thing. We keep coming, we keep going. And if we don't go, somebody else will. And that's basically the bottom line. I think it all goes back about making money for the club or for the business, not necessarily for looking after the fans, because that's a frustrating bit of all this. Not so much the pricing, the fact you're not willing to listen to fans and listen to their side of the story and thank them for all their loyalty for 1 year or for 60 years, like in Val's situation. That's right. What I'm annoyed about.
And listen, I know I'm so far away here in America, but I'm a fan of Fulham Football Club, and I've actually experienced something similar here with the sports team, so I can relate. And this, again, for me, it's about the fans because they're your lifeblood. They're the reason why the Cons bought Fulham Football Club. It's the fans. So for me to do this, I just completely disagree with this huge hike. I don't think this is a little hike. I don't think this is just an inflationary kind of hike. I think this is much more than that. But to your point, Emilio, they didn't do it last instance, so maybe in their minds, that's what justifies it being 18, in some cases more than that, 20%. Maybe that's where they're going on this. But for me, it doesn't make it right. I just don't see why they would do this. But we're going to talk about why in just a bit. But before we do, I'm going to share some comments because I want to get your thoughts on this. Scott, I'm going to get your thoughts on what Dan shared here. I have 3 season tickets, and if I'm honest, I'm not sure. Love the club and team. Been going for 35 years. It's 200-mile round trip as it is. Don't think the club are looking at the loyal fans. Scott, you're part of Friends of Fulham. I'm sure you're seeing this, and I'm wondering if the Cons understand the backlash they're getting from this.
Yeah, I probably think they do, but do they honestly care? And my honest opinion, that is probably no. I mean, you mentioned that word of saying, well, they bought the club as a family club. Yes, they probably did, but their main intentions were the position of the club, the area that it was based in. And at the end of the day, it was always going to be a money-making spin or a corporate spin for the owners. And the further down the line that we've got with the Cons, I mean, anything post sort of Al-Fayed, they've never been interested in the history of the club, the fan base or anything like that. I think there's been a small element of it, but as the further we've gone down the line, the more and more that's disappeared. And I've always said the same. Look, I travel in from Kent, from Maidstone, my ticket, I pay for a season ticket, I pay for a train ticket, time I draw out on the card now. Obviously, you have something to eat and a drink or whatever. It's an expensive day. You might pop into the club shop or whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. But you go back to when the club was, kind of a family club and it was on its knees and fans went to actually, input and help the club survive and, the club done the fan favours. That isn't Fulham anymore. And for me, that's been gone for a long, long time. And I've kind of accepted the fact. It's like that kind of X, isn't it? You sort of hold on for a little bit and it kind of disappears as time goes on. And Fulham, to me now, they're a football club, they're a business. And I think the mindset of the Cons is always going to be in that way. And if I'm perfectly honest, I think that kind of approach will stay and it probably will get a little bit worse as time goes on, unfortunately.
That's a great point, Scott. And I'm going to go to Emilio because you and I were talking about this part of the story off air before we went to go do the show, Emilio. It's a business. Mm-hmm. And you told me, and I'm just going to repeat it on the show, that you feel, and I'm sorry I'm speaking for you, you can tell the audience if I'm wrong, that you feel like you are a number. You're just a number, and that you can be replaced, meaning that it's strictly a business. To Scott's point, I'm glad that he brought it that way, because I understand running it like a business. It is a business, but I think they're now going to go to the next level. And they own the Jacksonville Jaguars, guys. And I'm telling you right now, to the fans that don't know this, the Cons are making a ton of money off the Jacksonville Jaguars with the revenue sharing in the NFL. They get 132 of the pie. It's an obscene amount of money that they're making off of merchandising, off of so many different things. The Cons are making a lot of money. Don't think they're making money because they keep funneling money into Fulham, but the value of Mr. Khan has gone up. I think we've seen a report on that. I'm sure the value of Fulham Football Club has gone up. They are treating this like a business, Emilio. And I'm sorry, I feel you're right. I think you're just a number.
Yeah, and I've been supporting the club now, for over 43 years now? I've been a season ticket for the best part of that time. And we are a number. And Scott's right. Look at all the other Premier League clubs. I'm being generic here. We'll focus about Fulham in a minute, but how many of those owners or how many of those clubs are run as family clubs, or Man City, Liverpool, Man United? All their fans are complaining, and these are clubs that are winning trophies, and their fans are complaining about their owners. I'm not justifying what our owners are doing, but it's a common theme. The Premier League is probably the most successful sporting brand in the world as a brand. So, and the fact that we're in the top half of the most successful brand in the world says a lot. We've got to thank the owners that we are in the position we are. So let's not make it all criticism against the Cons. They've invested a lot of money in the club.
They have,
but I disagree with this rate of of increase. I think you're making a statement of fact, but business is business. And I've said it many times on the show. They're not going to worry about whether I can pay 700, 800. Nope. There'll be someone else queuing up behind me who will. And they don't make the money on the pricing of the seats. It's the merchandise, it's all the royalties, all the television. That's where they make the money. They're not going to make their money from selling 30,000 season tickets at an average of £1,000 a game. Or season. Sorry, that's not their money generating bit. That's a loss. That's loss making. And the fact that they're pricing us out just means other people are going to get those seats. But the worry is this season, those premium seats in the Riverside. How many of them were sold? I remember the first game against Liverpool. There was all that uproar when they were £100 each for the first game against Liverpool. Didn't sell out, not surprisingly. So, but like I said, my seat is empty or not, they don't care, because they're making their money on television rights, Sky TV, all these other places, global TV, merchandise, etc., etc. They're trying to attract a different clientele, and that comes with success. So we've got to evaluate: do we want the club to be successful, and that comes fortunate the price, or do you want the club to be as it was 20, 30 years ago when Scott's right? We were on our knees at times, where we felt a little bit more valued. We all felt part of the furniture, but then maybe don't have the success that goes with it. So it's a fine balance, right? So, just trying to say sometimes success does come at a price, but it doesn't make it right. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, excellent. Scott, I'm going to go back to you. I'm actually going to share again the pricing, and I want to focus on the Riverside stand pricing, because I find that an interesting part of all of this. And you and I were talking about your interest before this pricing announcement in the Riverside stand. So let's talk about this pricing, because this, to me, I'm going to tell you guys, I saw this coming a mile away. I saw this coming years ago. The minute that they had the idea to build this stand, I knew that once the stand was built, the pricing would be crazy. And I'm looking at the pricing right now for bronze, silver, gold, platinum lower, and platinum upper, Scott. These are expensive pricing. In fact, I've heard on other shows talking about that this might be the most expensive season ticket on earth, that has nothing else to go along with it. They were actually talking about that on Fulhamish. So let's focus on the Riverside, because I think there's more to do it than just the pricing here. I think there's another part of this. I think it shows where they're going on this, that it's about the money, because that's what the Riverside stand shows me.
Yeah, I don't know if you got it through the post, Emilio, the nice glossy brochure that shows you a finished Riverside stand. It's nowhere near the completed version of what we see when we go to home games. And I get it. it looks very good on completion. I think we've been told that it won't be fully completed until until next season or whatever it is. But I mean, look, I sort of looked at those prices. I mean, you've got obviously the upper and lower tiers. They've done like a bronze, silver, and gold option, but then obviously they've done a platinum sort of upper and lower. Now I'm looking at that at $3,000, and I'm thinking, well, if I want to sit on an upper seat, and I'm going to be a platinum sort of supporter with a padded seat, what am I actually getting for that? I don't think a lot kind of has been completed behind the scenes, because they said that the fit out is kind of miles behind at the moment. So I don't know what facilities are there at the minute. I don't think the club have been too clear about it, but I mean, Christ, yeah, I mean, for $3,000, I mean, yeah, you're going to want a bit for that. And I don't think that Riverside stand is going to offer it at this moment in time. As I said to you off of air, Russ, I mean, my friend has moved to Ireland now, so he's probably not renewing next season, but he kept his season ticket open this season. We've been sort of sharing it out or whatever it is. And I've got no loyalties to that seat anymore. And I sort of said to myself, look, it's probably a prime opportunity for me to do a season in the Riverside, just to kind of see what it's like and, get a feel of it. At least say I've done it. And I was expecting maybe a price of about sort of £1,200 as a one-off treat. And I thought, yeah, okay, that's good. But not at these prices. And that's kind of said to me now that, look, I mean, you're taking a P at this stage, where's this going to go, obviously, when that is complete? Where are them prices going to be then? I mean, yeah, it is an extortionate price bracket for very little. And I mean, they say even with those kind of platinum tier things there that you get sort of access on things like tickets and stuff like that. It just doesn't warrant the money, if I'm honest with you.
Right. And I'm going to share this comment from Ben Lawrence, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Scott. Russ, Emilio, can you see the new Riverside stand being a sellout with the prices? So, Scott, what do you make of that?
I mean, again, we were talking, weren't we? There's sections that are blocked out, Russ. We don't know what they are during match day. Are they kept closed because they haven't done things behind the scenes on those certain levels, and there's only pockets that are opening up? Are they going to open them for corporate events or whatever it is, or special match day tickets? We don't know.
Right.
Your average Joe fan, I don't think, is going to buy those tickets at that price at that stage of the Riverside stand, if I'm honest with you. I don't think it's going to sell out, not from your average fan anyway, but will people like touts or whatever it is maybe have a dabble there somewhere along the line? Possibly, because I know they can get big money for the big games, desperation, stuff like that. But then that promotes, obviously, the wrong type of fan base. I mean, like I've always said before, I think if you've got loyalty within the club, there should be a structure there where if you are moving from the Hammersmith end to have a little bit of luxury that side, there should be at least a suitable bracket there for the fan that they can invest in, And that clearly shows that it's not designed for those type of fans,
I totally agree. Emilio, I want to go over to you. And you and I talked about this. Listen, we don't know exactly what's going on with those seats, with those blocked off seats that are unavailable in the Riverside stand. But something tells me that there's something on a corporate level that's going on. I could be wrong, like Scott and I were talking about as well. We don't know. They've been very close-lipped on this. But when I see all of these open seats that are blocked off, my first thought came to it's going to be similar to how it is here in the U.S., like it is here at Gillette Stadium, with what we call club seats. Corporations buy the club seats, and they get other amenities that go along with it. So I have a feeling, I could be wrong, that that's a part of this as well. So I'm not against a corporate part of this. But what I am not for is putting that ahead of the average Fulham supporter because they've given their lifeblood, not the corporations, Emilio.
Yeah, no, I look back at all those. Yeah, this has been a common theme. I think there was all this "Stop the Greed" campaign a few seasons back. This was 2018, 2019. So it's not the first time we've seen issues by our fans. At the time, I criticised those who were, basically going against the club owners after they've invested so much money in the club to actually go, boycott the games and going with all these banners. I remember there was one game, they tried to stop the game or put, around for 55 minutes or something like that. That was a failure. But now you look at the situation now, I somewhat sanction appealing to the club and asking the owners to reconsider their options. I will still renew my season ticket, but maybe I'm in a fortuitous position where I can do that, but many people can't. So, so I just the principle here, it's not good, to be honest with you. But those premium seats, they're not going to make the money with me or Scott buying them for £3,000. It's the corporates are going to come and grab those seats. They're going to spend thousands, tens of thousands. They'll buy the meals, the champagne, you name it. It'll be, it's all about creating the brand and the identity. It's all about Fulham Football Club. And I think you made the point off air, Russ, which, we'll probably cover off about, are the Khans looking to maybe sell the club? They're trying to create more interest, make it more of a successful brand. We've been associated as being a yo-yo club in the last, under their tenure. So now that we've almost guaranteed survival in the Premier League, now they feel they're in a position where they can push up, make the club more successful, attract new investment, new players, new sponsorship, all of that. It's just a revolving cycle of activity. At the end of the day, it's all about a business, and whether the fans turn up or not, they're not going to make their money, lose their money if the seat's empty or not. The money is from the other factors we'll talk about. So they don't really give a flying F when it comes to fans, because they've actually got other means of generating income. So yeah, overall, it's frustrating, because there's a lot of fans out there who, Scott's point, make a day of it. So you got a mother, a father, and 2 children. You're looking at what, £300 a game to turn up, and then you get all the food, the merchandise, all that. It's an expensive day out per game.
Yeah, can you say on that as well? What you were saying there about obviously the value of it as well. I mean, one of the things that we've noticed as well is, I'm in the Hammersmith end in H7. I mean, it was reasonably priced last year, really. I mean, probably about an increase of £108, I think, on top of that. But I mean, they've made since almost that Riverside has been done. I mean, obviously we've lost a section at the back of that Hammersmith end, so everything's become tight and compact there with the new terraces. The new turnstiles that have gone in and everything else. And for an additional, £100 a year, I mean, none of the facilities behind there have had any kind of upgrades made to them. I mean, them toilets are horrific. I mean, there's a few of us that stand there, come down and get a drink at half time. We're literally squashed up against actual wheelie bins and whatever it is. And that concourse is completely unworkable for that level of football. And my question to the Khans is that football is not just about a section of fans; it's about everyone.
Exactly.
And I think for their money, people should at least be getting a slightly higher or more safer type of facility when they're paying for a ticket. And if they're not prepared to do that, you know exactly where their mindset's going. Personally, so.
Yeah,
Emilio, I want to get your thoughts on this, because I wanted to talk about this. Why have they not really improved the other parts of Craven Cottage? I've heard this argument from other supporters. You're there. Why do you think that they focus so much on the Riverside stand and not as much on the other parts of Craven Cottage?
There's where I stand, because it's a listed building, so the whole seating and the infrastructure, that's a different ball game. You end up into sort of listed buildings, more restrictions, but the service areas don't need upgrading. Where Scott's talking about, where I sit, below where I sit, there's very limited space to buy your drinks. Sometimes it's a health hazard, people standing on the steps when it should all be kept safe. So I don't think the stewards are very doing their jobs effectively, because it can be quite dangerous. I see a lot of people struggling to walk up and down the stairs. So Scott's right. As a successful club, the services should improve rather than just the actual pitch itself and the success on the ground. Look at all the other factors, but we've had to take the Riverside stand's been out of service 3 or 4 seasons now by the time it's going to be fully open. So if you're going to start upgrading other services and other parts of the ground, then that's going to create even further restrictions. So I won't be surprised if once the Riverside stand is locked down and completed, they'll start investing other areas as well. But if you try to do that simultaneously, if you then have a stadium which has limited fan base, to be honest with you. So I'm not defending it, but I'm just saying we can't do all the renovations in one go. They have to be done in a planned, organised way. But the stand I sit in, for example, is listed, so those seats are going. There's going to be significant, appeals to the council to get the authority to actually upgrade. But the other services, definitely next season, they need to be considered, because I think they're a health hazard. To be honest with you, the toilet facilities are appalling.
Okay, excellent stuff. All right, guys, coming up next, we're going to talk about why we think Fulham Football Club decided to do this. And to end the show, I want to get both of my co-host thoughts. Is this an indicator that they're going to spend big this summer? I'm curious their thoughts on that as well. Okay, guys, let's get to it. And let's go to the question that I'm very curious your thoughts on. I've given this a lot of thought. Why have they done this? And I've heard the argument over the years since the Khans bought Fulham Football Club that they wanted to be sustainable. Is that a reason why they're doing this? Is it a reason to get the value up on Fulham Football Club? As I mentioned, I'm not saying that they're going to sell, but the value of Fulham Football Club will increase once the Riverside stand is open. It also will increase with higher ticket pricing. That helps it as well. There are a lot of factors here. Not saying that's why they're doing it. Or could it be, I'm throwing it out there, do the Cons want to win? Meaning, are they doing this, guys, because they actually want to compete with the Arsenals, with the Liverpools, and they feel that they need to do this to compete with the top six? I know many are going to say that's ridiculous. I'm saying, do you think they think this is the way to do it? So, Scott, I'll go to you first. Why do you think they're doing this?
For the simple reason what you've said, Russ, it's plain and simple. They want to compete. I mean, we, as much as we don't like it, we've all lived in this kind of time where Fulham's, this kind of small little friendly family club around Fulham, and there's always been that argument in the fan base, isn't there, where we need to lose that kind of name if we want to really start competing with the big boys. We need to come away from being little old Fulham round by the cottage. We need to be, in a good stadium, and we need to be competing with decent players. And I think the Khans, as much as they've got things wrong, and I will defend them here slightly, they are starting to learn in the game, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch. And I think this has happened, as part of that, as part of the club growing. I mean, I had a sort of a laugh and joke with my friend a while back and said, look, I said, I do feel that you're probably going to have three sides of the stadium done. And if they can push to do the Johnny Haynes stand, they will do. And you'll have a complete stadium there. That won't just be, entertaining football. You'll have a pier outside. You'll get people coming down on boats from Kent to watch venues there. You're going to have, wrestlers abseiling off the roof and everything else. And I got laughed at. But as time has gone on, he came to me and said, look, I can probably see that this is the direction that the Khans are going in. And realistically, Fulham as a football club, and we all know this, is not going to survive just as Fulham Football Club on its own. We're going to need other revenue streams. We're going to need other purposes, like other clubs do, like your Tottenhams, like your Arsenals. I've been to Brighton's new stadium, and that is a kind of a workforce that operates 24/7, not just on match day. So there's revenues coming from every strand of that thing. And, the Khans, when you look at it, with the amount of money that they pumped into the club, yes, they're at probably a very, very big net loss, but they're making money in other areas. But they're not going to continue running a business venture like that. It's just not plausible. At the end of the day, they're going to want us at a decent, whatever else goes on in this world these days with businesses and acquisitions, whatever it is. Fulham are going to need to be at a certain level before, even if they do sell, to say, there you go, there's a nice corporate package for you, all done and built. And probably that's where they're going to want to be. So, it's part and parcel of that, Russ.
And I agree with that, Scott. Emilio, I want to get your thoughts on this because you and I were talking about this. Fulham can't compete against Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal with the amount of capacity they have at Craven Cottage. They can't, right? So they have to find other revenue streams. A big part of that is this new Riverside stand. Like, to Scott's point, what Brighton are doing, they are figuring ways for new revenue streams. The Khans are trying to do that, but I think the reason why the Khans are doing this, Emilio, is because they ultimately want to win. They just don't want to be there. They want to compete. I'm not saying that I like the fact that they're increasing the ticket prices, because I don't think it's fair for what they've done here. But I think the reason is ultimately they want to compete for the top six and maybe beyond that. Their goals are higher than maybe we have as supporters. They want to compete, Emilio. That's what I ultimately think all of this is about. This is a small part of it.
Yeah, and if you look about it, these guys have persevered. They've had 3 relegations in under their stewardship. We've got promoted as many times. So look, I've always said I think they're in it for the long haul. At the end of the day, so far there'll come a point where they may decide to move away. But cost of land has gone up in the UK. The cost in Southwest London is hit. Has gone over the roof for the last few years post COVID. At the end of the day, there's a money side of it, but at the end of the day, they're in it also. They do want the club to be successful. Let's not kid ourselves here. We could have other owners, and we'll end up complaining that the owners aren't doing enough for the club. Put aside the ticket prices for a moment. If there's any fans who think that the Khans don't want to be successful, need to think again. I think they've tried their best. And Scott's right. They learned from their mistakes. with Touchwood, we're surviving this season. Hopefully we can build on that. I always say we should be aspiring to be like Brighton. I've been to the Amex many times myself. Great facilities. They obviously look after their fans. The owners there are very more engaged. I think that's the thing. I'd like to see the Cons just a little bit more engaged with our fans, listening to us, doing more events with the fans in the community. I don't see them doing enough of that. And if they want to build respect amongst loyal fans and even trying to identify new fans, at the end of the day, like me and Scott, there'll come a point that we won't be on this planet. Who's the next generation of fans that are going to come and follow the club? So it's an evolving cycle of events here. As far as I'm concerned, the owners do want to be successful. I think we're restricted how far we can go at the moment. The fact that it was mid-table says a lot about how well the club have been managed this season, and to get to where we are. And the fact that Liverpool, there's the top 6, we can't even go nowhere near them. But we're in that sort of middle, Brighton, Brentford, Crystal Palace ourselves. We're in that sort of next tier of clubs, and if we can continue to evolve and stay in that mid-table 8th place, season in, season out, get a cup run here and there, that's for a club of stature of Fulham, that's a very good outcome, right? But we need the owners who are going to commit to the long term, build the facilities at the club, which they're doing. Hopefully, we'll see some new investment in players next season, and we can push on. But at the end of the day, money doesn't grow on trees. Put yourself in their shoes. I've said it all the time and time. Money doesn't grow on trees, and I'd rather have owners who are investing money in this club and keeping the club afloat and able to compete at the highest level than maybe playing in a lower league, paying cheaper prices, and maybe not getting the level of quality and talent. So it all depends what a fan wants. I think if we can't have it all, unfortunately. And if I want to see success at the club, I want it to compete for trophies. I want it to push up the table. If it means I have to find a way to pay more for that privilege, then that's only a decision only I can make. That's the bottom line, unfortunately. That's life, unfortunately. That's life wherever you go.
That's a great point. I just want to mention this. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show. And again, I just want to invite Shahid Khan, Alistair McIntosh, Tony Khan, anyone at Fulham Football Club, if you want to come on and discuss your decision here, please feel free to contact me. I would love to have you on Cottage Talk to talk to us who are fans and get to the fans why you have decided to do this. If you don't want to come on Cottage Talk, there are other podcasts you can come on as well. I would like to get a response from you, and I'm giving you the avenue to do it. This is my invitation to Shahid Khan and Tony Khan, and of course, Alistair McIntosh. If you want to come on Cottage Talk, let me know. Okay. So, Emilio, that's going to go back to my thoughts on where I think this is all headed. I could be wrong on this because I think they're ambitious. I slightly disagree with you. I understand where you think we can be. We can be between 12 and 8. I can understand where you're going on that. I think the ambitions of the Cons are more lofty than that. I could be wrong. It's just how I feel that they are looking at this. They've invested a lot of money. So I think they are going to go all in. So that's going to lead me now to talk to you guys about this summer. I could be wrong, and I understand about FFP. I get all that. Scott, I'll go to you first. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think the price increase is an indicator that Fulham planned on spending big this summer? I hope it is.
It's always a touchy subject, isn't it, of what we can and what we can't spend. I mean, I don't know if you've just read those 2 articles from Cottage Analytics.
I saw it.
I've put it on the forum as well, so you can go on there and have a read. It's part 1 and part 2, and he gives a very, very detailed description of obviously the financial fair play issues that we've had and what we might be facing, obviously, for the following season. So I would recommend people jump on and have a read of that because it's very sort of it's very in-depth and very, very good. I mean, we've, as a club, and I think as all fans know this, second season syndrome's coming. And it's probably the most important one out of the first season surviving because you get picked apart for all your best players and you've got to replace, but you've got to add quality in certain areas. Like we're going through a bit of a lull now where Marco's pushed that team and the championship players are just not up to it, and he's probably now having a look at whereabouts it is. So there is going to be a level of investment for next season. But again, are we restricted to that via financial fair play and other bits and pieces? I don't really know, Russ. I mean, I would say that a proportion of probably these price hikes are to do with, I think, obviously, getting other revenue through the door, but I think it's also backfilling what we've missed out on things like COVID, and previous seasons where they pump money in and we've come at a loss. And at some stage, the club has to level. Regardless of whatever they pump in money-wise, I think you can always amortise salaries and prices over certain seasons and whatever it is, but it has to be a level balance there where I think they have to get the losses up to a certain level where it's not as extortionate as it has been. And I think this is just fine-tuning us and what we've been talking about of where Premier League clubs are now. And I think prices, the more successful we become, as Emilio said, the more expensive we are going to be as a franchise, as a brand to watch. And, people are going to be expected to pay that money. I mean, I'm noticing it again this season. I don't know if you are, Emilio, that there's a lot more tourists around me. They're all there with their cameras turning around everything but the game or whatever. And these guys are paid 70-odd quid a ticket. There was that guy that bought a ticket, I think, in the Johnny Haynes stand that paid 78 quid and he was stuck right in front of a post, wasn't he? That he put it all over thing. So people are prepared to pay this type of money, and I think the fans are aware of that. The more successful the brand is, as the saying goes, you build it, we will come. And I think naturally that is why obviously we're seeing these price increases. And like I said, hopefully that at this stage, we've learned from our lessons. We do stick for a bit in the Premier League, and the brand of Fulham does keep growing, because as a fan, yes, we all like a moan, but I would like to see us competing at those sort of levels again.
Very good. All right, Emilio, I want to get your thoughts on what Scott shared. He's going down the road that this could just be fine tuning, and maybe I'm jumping the gun to this could be an indicator that maybe Fulham are going to go big. But to Scott's point, FFP is a part of this. However, and I'll just say, I'm just looking at this, as Scott just said, second season syndrome. Do they go above and beyond, even with FFP issues, to ensure not just their safety, but they're heading in the right direction? Do they go against the analytics, the situation with FFP, and spend big because they need to upgrade this squad? I think they probably need 11 or 12 players. I just look at it that way. So are they going to be, as Scott said, I agree with what Scott said. They have learned from their mistakes. So maybe spending big would be going back to an old mistake. But I think if you did it right, it wouldn't be a mistake, meaning if you spent your money wisely, but you spent it on several players, spent big, but not like you did in 2018. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think before we touch that point, the other thing as well, the thing that's worth noting is, I'm not saying it's right, is it more effective and more productive for the season tickets not to be renewed? Because you can actually get more per seat. From to Scott's point, I'm seeing a lot of tourists where I sit. A lot of people, we've got our own little niche of people who've been there year in, year out, but there are a lot of faces that keep popping up that I don't see. So non-season ticket seats, typically they're always sold. But, my average ticket will be £40 next season per home game. That ticket can be sold independently for probably £80 now once a season. So again, you could get double the price if people turn up game by game as opposed to be buying in advance. So I'm just saying there's also another perspective here that hasn't been covered. So are they trying to attract more non-loyal fans because you can get more money per seat? But then I think Neil Townsend made a point, and I've said it on the show, ticket sales is a small amount with the overall income. Their revenue generating source is not from my seat, it's from all the other things that we've talked about. As far as next season's concerned, we do need to invest. We do need to upgrade. I think we've hit the same problem we had last season, where some of these players have punched above their weight. They look fatigued, look tired. Last season, March to the end of the season, we're inconsistent. We're seeing the same pattern again. So these players, congratulate them for getting us to where we are now. But we are slipping down that table, not surprisingly. And, we do need to upgrade. So we're going to need some decent signings, probably experienced professionals as well. I think we can start to build youth. But at the same time, we also need to create experience. If we want to sustain Premiership survival year in, year out,
right,
and push on to your point, Russ, I'm happy, to get mid-table, at any point in the season. If we can push on from that, even happier. But with that, you need to have a successful model like Brighton have got, where they find players on the cheap and, they mold them into the team and become very successful. But trying to compete with the likes of Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, who are spending hundreds of millions of pounds every single year with hundreds of £1 million wages, we can't compete with that. So the fact that Brighton are where they are is commendable, but the club need to dip their hands into their pockets, because Scott's right. The next season, I think, is going to be more difficult than this year.
I agree with Scott on that. I agree with you. I think it's going to be much harder.
Much harder next year.
Absolutely. So, Scott, where I want to go on this, because obviously the supporters are upset. And I don't blame them because I just think the amount of the increase is massive. If it was, say, for like cost of what we would say over here, inflation, I could deal with this. I think 18 to 20% is just way too high. Here's the thing that I learned here in America with the team I follow, the New England Patriots. They built a new stadium, Scott, and the ticket prices went double. They doubled season ticket prices. They literally doubled it. And at the time, there was this uproar similar to this. However, what ended up happening is what I'm about to ask you. What happens if Fulham start winning and end up being a top 10 side once again? Can the Cons justify this by saying, well, we're winning and the fans will be okay with it because we're winning? Is winning the elixir that they're looking for, the Cons? Will that blow over the fans being upset about the ticket prices? Will they deal with it better if Fulham start winning consistently?
I think it's that you kind of get that scenario where if you are winning all the time or you are winning more regularly, then people are going to pay to see a winning side. But I think that's what Neil was saying there, that ticket prices aren't always a mainstream revenue. But if you're successful, you're going to get bigger sponsorships. You're going to get bigger, bigger players wanting to come to the club, and they'll attract, bigger sort of fan bases and stuff like that. So it all goes hand in hand, really. I mean, I think the biggest problem that we got is that because obviously, how long have the Carn's been in now? Is it coming up 10 years-ish or something like that?
It's coming up on 10 years.
And we've had a lot more failure than we have had success. So, obviously, I think based on that, when you look at it, there hasn't been that much success based on, obviously, the failures that we have been through from when I took the club over. So I think eventually fans will get used to it. Inflation in this country will level out and, things will improve, I think, slightly for the average living, cost of living per person eventually.
Right.
And prices may level itself out. And I think people will get over it. But it's always a shock when things go up. Especially in stuff that you enjoy, because we all use football as, I think, an escape from reality of working or kind of life in general. We like that 90 minutes just to get out of the way of everything. And when you're paying through the nose for it, it all does become a bit of a shock. But we'll always see prices go up in football, Russ. The more successful this club becomes, or the more successful they do become, the more things are going to cost. And that is just unfortunately life, isn't it? We're never going to get away from it. And we've discussed that the Cons are a slightly different owner for what we've been used to in the past. They're businessmen, they're successful businessmen, and unfortunately that will come at a cost. So I don't think it's the last we'll see of it, and I think there will be more of this to come in the future. So,
all right, Emilio, I completely agree with Scott, and I've seen this. This is, to me, just the tip of the iceberg, the beginning. I think you're going to see higher prices moving forward. As long as Fulham are successful, I think it's going to keep going up. And we could argue, like I said, with winning, does that now breed higher pricing? I actually think it does. But it kind of goes together. If you start winning, you're going to get more corporate sponsors, as you said. I think this all comes down to why the Cons are doing this. Whether you agree with it or not, they want to win. This is about winning. But if we win, the pricing is going to continue to go up, Emilio.
Yeah, and again, I want to take a comparison to our local neighbours who are struggling at the moment. We're above them in the table, Chelsea fans. Thank you very much. But Jokanovic, the previous owner, how much money did Abramovich pump into the Chelsea? He was making loss year after year after year. But what did he want to see? He wanted to see silverware. He wanted to see success.
That's all.
That's what he wanted. He didn't care how much money he was losing at the club. He didn't necessarily care about the fans. He just wanted to lift that Champions League trophy, which he ultimately did. And the Cons are probably just as ambitious. These guys are very wealthy.
That's my point, Emilio.
These guys are very, very wealthy. They're going to struggle. We've only got a 30,000 seater stadium, and so that's always going to be a limitation. Someone, I think, made a point: do we need to move grounds? Don't think there's ever a desire to leave. Fulham will always be in Fulham. I don't think we will be able to attract much bigger fan base that comes in, week out. But the club, to be successful, we need a sponsorship. We need other revenue streams. We need television rights. We need Premier League survival. Then you'll get attract the right players. You can attract more quality. You can be even more competitive, sustain Premier League survival. We did, 13, 14 years? We were in the Premier League before we got relegated. So, look, we proved we can do that with sort of steady investment. That's breaking the bank. These guys are going down the other avenue completely, spending, they have spent millions and billions to be over there. Let's see, someone wants to do a calculation. How much money have they spent, this club? hundreds of millions of pounds. Not always successfully, but the desire was always there. And you're right, Scott, that, there'll come a point, and this is just, like I said, it is a tip of the iceberg. Merchandise will go up, but point I made earlier, if you want to be successful, that comes at a price. So I don't know, there's a question to everyone. Do you want the club to be successful and pay a premium, or would you rather languish, be struggling for relegation year in, year out, up and down like a yo-yo, and potentially go down into second and third tiers? How many clubs have got relegated into second and third tiers when they're previously Premier League? So things can change very quickly. That's what I'm saying. Let's enjoy it while we can. It may come at a premium, but I think, do we want success or do we want failure? Sometimes they do go hand in hand, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm going to share this from our friend Emilio, Steve Reynolds. As a tourist, if we sold Zhao, would we expect that money to be invested into the team? Emilio, I would expect it. I would totally expect it because, again, they want to win. I don't think they're going to sell Zhao Polina. I've seen a comment here that telling me that they could potentially, our friend Wayne Walden, he says, watch this space. Zhao Polina will be gone in the summer. Wayne, I hope you're wrong on that.
Yeah.
But again, the point is, do you expect them to invest? I expect them to invest, Emilio. To Scott's point, I'm not sure about FFP. I just know that they want to move this team forward and they need to invest in the club.
Yeah, and I think, look, if Liverpool or another club come in with a massive bid for Paulinho, we'll do our best to push back on that. But there'll come a point when does it come appropriate to say no? If you get 50, 60 million for him, I think a club like ourselves, I think you've got no choice. You probably end up taking that, and then you're going to struggle to be able to resist the temptation to sell at that price. To be honest with you, we've been shafted by Liverpool and other clubs in recent years because we've been topsy turvy, up and down. So think other clubs can think they can get players on the cheap, but if we can now sustaining Premier League survival, Liverpool and other clubs will find it a challenge to play cheap for someone like the likes of Paulinho. They want him, they've got to pay up. And to be honest with you, it'll be difficult to resist the temptation to accept a bid of anything in excess of 50 million, however good he is. I think we would have to take that, the club that we are, and then you invest that in other players and try to build and replace. But he's been indispensable this season. But again, it goes back, can we compete with Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City? If they're going to throw big bucks, you sometimes have to think of business-wise and take it.
Okay. And this is from our friend Chris Goodwin, who happens to be a Liverpool supporter. And Chris, of course you're going to say that Zhao Polina playing midfield, right? Yes, Chris. Of course, I know you want Zhao Polina. I get that. Whatever. Anyways, I do want to share this comment. This is from our friend Coleman. Scott, I want to get your thoughts on this because I've thought about this, and I don't know how you view this. How long before Shahid stops turning debt into shares? And it's a valid point. How much money is he willing to invest in the Fulham Football Club? This is why I just put it out there. I'm not saying he's doing it, but the value of Fulham Football Club continues to grow. When does it get to the point where he considers selling? I don't think he's going to. I think he wants to win. But it's valid to bring this up, Scott.
I mean, it's like anything. As I said before, football is a business. Not a lot of owners do make a profit. But on a general whole, I think there are ways of moving money about, turning bits into shares and levelling things up where you can kind of hide that debt or move it around or bolt it against other things. I think all the time that he knows that Fulham Football Club are going to be successful, or there's a limit that we can reach before he gets to that stage where we're a kind of a sellable asset,
yep.
I think he's always going to keep doing that. At the end of the day, he's not going to go on forever. No one does. Nothing does. So at the end of the day, he's going to want Fulham to be at, its peak and its most sellable and its most profit. And to make Fulham Football that club, he's going to have to keep turning that debt into shares, isn't he? Or
exactly.
As they put it. And, when you come to sell it, it's going to kind of be sort of slightly debt-free, isn't it, really?
Yep.
So I think he's going to keep doing it all the time he has interest in the club. How he does it, what he does is none of our business. It's his accountant that deals with that, not us. But I think you'll find that he'll keep doing that to a point. When he stops doing it, I think that's when we've got to start worrying, to be honest with you. So
totally agree, Scott. Let me ask both of you this to end the show. I want to get your thoughts on this because I was talking to Emilio, a friend of ours, Steve Reynolds, and I floated out, how much do you think Fulham is worth right now? Scott, how much do you think it's worth right now? I believe Shahid bought it, I want to say for $300 million. Am I correct? How much do you think it's worth now?
It's difficult to say without that Riverside complete, isn't it? Because what's he's bought the BBC land across the way from Motspur, so he's got that. Obviously we've grown with inflation over the years, and what did the Riverside cost us in the end to build? Was it 100 and something million or whatever?
Yep.
What are we worth? It's really difficult to put a price on us, but football just seems to go up and up and up, doesn't it? What are we worth? $500 million-ish now? I would have thought something like in that region, maybe. I would have thought.
Okay. I think higher. Emilio, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably pushing a billion, right up 900 billion, nearly a billion. I think it's in excess of that. You've got to think now, Premier League, there's a price to being in the Premier League. You've got assets that are playing week in, week out. You've got land that costs a small fortune. All of that put together, it's probably pushing, 800 to 900 million at least, in my opinion, if not more.
Do you think? Sorry, obviously with the lack of success we had, would you say we're at that stage yet, or do you think we need a couple more seasons? I would say that we probably need a couple more seasons of success in that division before we can start saying we're around about that kind of £1 billion mark. Personally, that's just my own opinion.
I probably think it's probably now. To be honest with you, I think it's at this level now. And I think the key thing is we've got the foundation there. We've got the location, we've got the stands.
That's kind of where I'm going on this.
You think about all is an asset component. Look at what we're, all of that combined, the attraction, the tourists we've mentioned here. Many tourists coming to watch as well. We're an easy place to go and watch a club. Tourist comes in for the weekend, wants to go and watch a football club. They'll typically always find Fulham tickets available. Hence the reason why if I don't buy my seat, a tourist will. To be honest with you, so that's the thing. So I think it's got the foundations there, and we've got to thank the owners that they've put us in a position where we are a financially viable club. They're investing millions year in, year out. Yes, we may not like what they're doing with the pricing of season tickets, but they're keeping this club afloat. Let's not kid ourselves. I think let's be grateful for the fact we've got owners who care about the club. But it goes back to what I've said. That comes at a premium, unfortunately, and sometimes true loyal fans are not considered.
Right. And I'm just going to share this. And again, thank you, Claire Green, for sharing this comment. Scott, I want to get your thoughts on this. I'm not happy with a 100-pound rise in Hammersmith and with appalling facilities that we already talked about that. This to me is what actually upsets me. If you're going to increase the pricing, you better increase how the facilities are looking and how effective they are. To me, I agree with Claire on this. Scott, your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Like we talked about it at the beginning of the show. The Hammersmith, the Putney Ends, whatever it is, and obviously, I said about the Johnny Hayes, you've got restrictions there anyway. But we've languished in obviously facilities that have not been capable for that level of football for a while. You're still looking at sort of the old second, third division type tier. Even with the temporary stands there that facilitated for that back in the day. We've never really done any kind of physical work from that, apart from recladding the toilets or maybe put a few toilet roll holders up here and there or whatever, but we've never kind of done any kind of major upgrades there. We don't know what they're going to do in the summer. They may surprise us and do some kind of upgrades there. But as I said to you, as the club's moved on, we've become more desirable, more traffic, and especially with that Riverside End down, the bottom there where they've nicked a bit of that to put the turnstiles in, and that becomes clogged up because of that. People are pushing back onto the concourse. Right. And as I said, coming down for a beer at half time is actually dangerous. It should be part of your game. It's a nice experience to go and grab a beer, talk about how rubbish the game's been, how crap Robinson's been for that game or whatever it is, blah, 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 and stand there and not get nudged in the face and put beer all over you and be shoved up against the bin. That's my biggest problem with it down there, and obviously with the facilities as well in regards to the toilets. And I get that. If money goes up, you are going to expect more for your money.
Right, exactly, Scott. That's my point. So, I'm with Claire 100% on this. This is the part that upsets me.
I do get that, but unfortunately, we are where we are. I think we've banged that drum so many times, and fans have not been listened to over that. But it all seems to be, designated on that Riverside stand at the moment. So,
And here's a good comment from Claire: Premier League on the pitch, non-league behind the stand.
No. And I agree with that. I went non-league on Monday when I watched Chatham v Ramsgate. It was top of for the Ishman South title, and they've got better facilities than us there. And I'm not kidding you. Toilets or whatever. I know only 2,500 in there, but what I'm saying to you is that the toilets are on another level, and that is the Ishman South compared to the Premier League. So there you go.
Okay, good stuff. Guys, great show. I think we tackled a lot in this show. I want to go to final thoughts to wrap this up. First, Emilio, final thoughts on the show and also on our topics tonight.
No, it's been a good show. Look, I think we're all aligned here. I think we're all very disappointed at the price increases. I agree with Claire, at the end of the day. But, hard, ruthless as it may sound, it is what it is, right? It's, we each have the choice to stay or not go to games. Then only you, Claire, can make that, only I can make that, only Scott can make that. So ultimately, we have to look at our circumstances, we look at our values, our morals, and whether we want to renew or not. I will renew, but it doesn't necessarily mean I agree with the price hikes. Maybe right. I'm in a fortuitous position that I can afford to renew. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant way, but personal circumstances will dictate whether you're in a position where you can renew or not. And a lot of people I know close to my heart who won't be able to renew for financial reasons. So look, it's a difficult situation. I'll still follow the club where I can, but I just want the owners to do more for the fans, listen to the fans, engage more with the fans, collaborate with us, and they are valuing the club, but the people that stand behind this club week in, week out for many years, they're the one. I think we all feel like a bit of a kick in the teeth sometimes. So hopefully, Friends of Fulham, Fulhamish, all the different forums of Fulham Football Club and fans go out there, campaign to our owners and see if they can either come on the show or listen to us more extensively, because sometimes it just feels like we're not our values are not considered. But how many people who are complaining will end up going to the game and renew? And probably many people will do. That's unfortunately the truth.
That is the truth, Emilio. And Scott, before I go to your final thoughts, I'm glad that Emilio took us there, because I'm thinking, obviously I'm far away and I don't get a chance to go to Craven Cottage, but I talk to a lot of Fulham supporters. And this thing really hit me because I've been affected by other ticket increases and how much money has been spent on a brand new stadium and how much it costs to park a car at Gillette Stadium, $50 to park a car, which is insane. All the things that they've done with the idea that, well, they win, so it's okay. You're going to pay it. And I think the Cons have taken that same attitude. Well, we're in the Premier League. You're going to pay it. And I understand it's a business. I understand if you're going to get other revenue streams. I'm all for it. I'm all for the corporate part of this if it helps upgrade the quality of not just Craven Cottage, but also the quality on the pitch. But you cannot forget the people that got you to Fulham Football Club, the supporters. The supporters got Fulham to where they are. And I just think that they need to consider them more than they are. And I think this ticket increase is not given enough consideration to that.
No, I think you're right. Look, I mean, price increases happen. I think you're right in the fact that there hasn't been enough consultation with the fans over, what these prices are for, what they mean, or, I mean, they're not in their rights to do that. But I think obviously if you're going to be more engaging with your fans, I think you kind of explain it a little bit better than what they have done. I don't know. Look, coming back to, the conversation with Mino said about sort of renewing. Yeah, I'll be renewing. It's £100 more. I was laughing a little bit earlier on because the amount of times I've threatened not to renew because I'm peed off with Martin Yole or this and that or whatever. But I've always renewed my season ticket. It's always been one of those things, Russ. But the £100 increase for me, is it affordable, isn't it? I mean, time you spread it over the season, yeah, it probably is for the average person. But you've got kids, it's always a little bit more expensive. But for me, football's not just about the game, it's about going, spending time with friends and whatever. So that's right. What really appeals to me. And obviously, if I'm watching, Tottenham, West Ham, the Liverpool games and United, it's always going to be more of an attraction for me. And but I will, and as I said, I will renew in the Hammersmith end. I won't do what I was going to do and have that season in the Riverside, because I just think at this moment in time, it's not attractive enough for the prices that they're offering. I mean, they've sent me a glossy brochure in the post, I think, today. And I've read it, and I mean, that looks complete to me. But if you go and stand around the back and have a look at it, you've got tarpaulin and all sorts hanging off of it, and you ain't going to get that for your $3,000, are you? So, no. But as a standard season ticket, yeah, I will renew, and, we carry on. So,
okay. Excellent stuff. Great show. I want to thank my co-host, Emilio Nello, the Fulham Shadow, and Scott Tanfield from Friends of Fulham. Please check out Friends of Fulham. Wonderful website. I go there every single day. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk. now part of the talkSPORT Fan Network.